Welcome to the History Story Podcast. Are you ready for another historical road trip?
Oh, absolutely. Always up for an adventure, especially when it involves a good mystery.
Well, buckle up because today we're heading to a pretty isolated and kind of unsettling spot, actually. The Flannan Isles in the Outer Hebrides of Scotland. Ever heard of them?
Oh, yeah, the Flannan Isles out in the North Atlantic, right. Bit of a wild and remote place, if I recall. Famous for, well, let's just say, a certain lighthouse and a rather chilling incident.
You got it. The Flannan Isles Lighthouse Mystery of December 1900. That's our destination, and our mission, if you will, is to try and unravel this enduring enigma. Figure out what happened when a vital beacon went dark and left behind a void. We've dug into the history books, uncovered some first-hand accounts, and we're going to try and piece together this historical puzzle. What do you say? Ready to dive in?
Oh, absolutely. Count me in. A vanishing lighthouse, isolated location, 1900s. It's got all the ingredients for a gripping historical mystery.
I'm with you. So, first things first, let's set the scene. Picture this. The Flannan Isles, sometimes called the Seven Hunters. They're a small group of islands, pretty scattered, way out in the North Atlantic. Think northwest coast of Scotland. Harsh weather, unforgiving sea. You get the picture?
Oh, I can practically feel the wind and the spray. Not exactly a tropical getaway, are they?
Nope, not at all. But on the largest of these islands, Eilean Moor, there stood a brand new lighthouse. And for ships navigating those treacherous waters, that light was an absolute lifeline. Its disappearance would have sent chills down the spines of any sailor in the area.
Absolutely crucial for maritime safety back then. No GPS, no radar, just the stars and, well, lighthouses.
Exactly. And this particular lighthouse, it had a team of 3 keepers. First, you had James Ducat, the principal keeper. He was the most experienced of the bunch. Then there was Thomas Marshall, second assistant keeper.
Okay. So a veteran and someone maybe a bit newer to the job.
Right. And then the third man, Donald McArthur. He was listed as an occasional keeper, filling in for William Ross, who, lucky for him, was on shore leave because he was sick.
So a bit of a mixed bag in terms of experience. And what about this MacArthur fellow? Anything interesting about him?
Well, he's described as this, burly Highlander.
Yeah.
Big and strong. But he also had a bit of a reputation. A bit volatile, they say.
A bit of a wild card then.
Seems like it. Now, here's another key fact. This lighthouse, it had only been in operation for about a year, so while the keepers weren't complete rookies, they were still relatively new to this particular station.
Ah, that adds another layer, doesn't it? Still getting used to the routines, the isolation.
Definitely. Now, fast forward to December 15th, 1900. Ships passing by the Flannan Isles start noticing something's wrong. Really wrong. The lighthouse beacon, not lit.
Gone dark. That's a sailor's worst nightmare, especially in those waters.
Absolutely. But here's the catch. The weather at the time was absolutely brutal. I'm talking severe storms, huge waves. So any investigation, delayed. They couldn't get out there right away.
Talk about adding insult to injury. A missing light A&D, impossible conditions.
Exactly. And it wasn't until December 26th, Boxing Day, that the relief vessel, the Hesperus, finally reached the islands. They were bringing supplies and a returning keeper named Joseph Moore.
So this Joseph Moore, he's about to walk into, well, who knows what.
Yeah, and it's creepy from the start. As the Hesperus approached the island, there were no signs of life at the lighthouse. No flag, no keepers, no greeting. Just an unsettling silence.
Like something out of a ghost story.
It gets worse. Moore rows ashore, starts calling out for his colleagues. But nothing. Just the wind and the waves. He goes up to the lighthouse, finds the main door unlocked, which was unusual, but the inner kitchen door locked.
Locked? Now that's strange.
And what he finds inside, even more disturbing. The kitchen clock had stopped. A meal was laid out on the table. Meat, pickles, potatoes uneaten. Like they just got up and left in the middle of dinner.
Okay, that's just odd. Makes you wonder what on earth could have been so urgent.
I know, right? And get this. A single chair. Overturned, like someone jumped up suddenly.
Adding detail after detail. It's like a scene from a mystery novel, but this is real life.
Exactly. And here's where it gets really weird. The keeper's heavy-duty oilskins, the ones you absolutely need in that weather, 2 sets were missing. Ducats and Marshalls. But MacArthur's still hanging there.
So 2 went out prepared for the storm, 1 didn't. Why?
The million-dollar question, right? Inside, the lamps, cleaned, refilled, ready to be lit. But they weren't. The beds, unmade. And the last entry in the logbook, 9 a.m., December 15th. Just routine stuff.
But hold on, you mentioned earlier about some other log entries, right? Hinting at unusual things.
Ah, good catch. Our sources do mention some earlier entries, Apparently, there were notes about incredibly severe winds that even Ducat, the experienced one, found unprecedented. They also say Marshall had been unusually quiet in the days leading up to the disappearance, and that MacArthur was seen crying.
That changes things. Sounds like there was something bothering them even before the light went out.
Yeah, something definitely wasn't right.
Mm-hmm.
But let's step outside for a moment, specifically to the West Landing Stage. Now, this thing was almost 200 feet above sea level, high up.
High enough you'd think they'd be safe from the waves, even in a bad storm.
You'd think so, right? But there was major damage there. A supply crate smashed open, contents scattered everywhere, iron railings bent out of shape, a section of railway track ripped from its moorings, and a huge rock, like over a ton, displaced.
Whoa, that's some serious force.
Exactly. Some crazy wave hit that spot, far bigger than normal.
So we've got a scene of incredible destruction, hints of trouble in the days before, but the big question is still unanswered. Where are the men?
Gone. Vanished. No bodies, no messages, nothing. Just a snapshot of their lives, frozen in time, and then, poof. It's incredibly eerie.
Almost feels less like an accident, more like, I don't know, an erasure. Like you said earlier, 3 people just wiped from existence.
Yeah, and it really highlights how crucial lighthouses were back then. In the age of sail, and even with steam power coming in, those lights were vital for navigation.
Especially in a place like the Flannan Isles, right in those shipping lanes. Losing that light would have been a huge problem.
Huge. And lighthouse keeping. That was an isolated, demanding job. You had to be tough, resilient, almost like these symbols of human endurance against the power of the sea.
So for them to just vanish like that, I can see why it would have been so unsettling for people back then.
Absolutely. And don't forget, this was a time when superstition and folklore was still very much alive, especially in coastal communities. The sea was this powerful, mysterious, almost mythical force.
And something like this, disappearing without a trace in that kind of setting, it just fuels all those anxieties, all those stories about the sea's power.
Exactly. And of course, the newspapers had a field day. They ran with the story, sensationalizing every little detail. The Northern Lighthouse Board, or NLB, they launched an inquiry, but the mystery had already gripped the public's imagination.
So what was the public's immediate reaction to all this? Shock, fear, curiosity?
All of the above, I'd say. People were trying to make sense of it, coming up with all sorts of theories. Some were grounded, others a bit more far-fetched. And the NLB, they came up with a pretty straightforward explanation.
Okay, let's hear it. What did they conclude?
They said the keepers were most likely swept away by a giant wave while they were out on the landing stage. Maybe they were securing some equipment during a break in the storm, and this rogue wave just came out of nowhere.
Well, it fits with some of the evidence, right? We know there was damage on the landing stage, evidence of a huge wave.
True, but it doesn't explain everything. Why would all 3 experienced keepers leave the lighthouse unattended during a storm? Why would they all be on that landing stage at the same time?
And let's not forget that locked inner door. If they were swept away from outside, how did that door get locked?
Yeah, good point. That detail just doesn't fit. And that's why this whole thing remains such a compelling mystery. It's like the Mary Celeste, another famous disappearance, but on land this time.
A historical Rorschach test, one of our sources called it. People project their own interpretations onto it.
Exactly. And it's become a modern myth, endlessly retold and reinterpreted. And that's the power of this story. The unanswered questions, the isolation of the Flannan Isles, and the way it just makes your mind race with possibilities.
So let's get into those possibilities. Let's unpack some of the theories.
All right, time for a deep dive into the rabbit hole of theories. So, first up, the official explanation from the NLB. Superintendent Robert Muirhead, he theorized that Ducat and Marshall went down to the landing stage to secure something, like a crate or some ropes. MacArthur, seeing a massive wave coming, rushed out to warn them without his oilskins, hence the missing gear and overturned chair. And then, whoosh, all 3 swept away by this rogue wave.
Makes sense in a way. Rogue waves do happen, the damage is there, and the missing oilskins support the idea of MacArthur acting quickly without thinking to grab his own.
Right, but again, why would all 3 experienced keepers be down there, leaving the light unattended during a storm? Why would they even risk it? It's a bit of a head-scratcher.
It's those inconsistencies, those nagging little details that keep the other theories alive.
Exactly. And it leads us to some darker possibilities. What about foul play? Could something have happened between the keepers? Maybe the isolation got to them? Could it have been a murder-suicide situation? We know MacArthur had that temper.
It's not impossible. Extreme isolation can do strange things to people. But was there any evidence of a struggle inside the lighthouse?
None that we know of. And getting rid of 2 bodies on that exposed island would be pretty difficult to do cleanly. So while we can't rule out the psychological aspect, the actual evidence for foul play is thin.
Okay, so if not a freak wave or foul play, then what?
Well, this is where things get a little more out there. We enter the realm of the supernatural, the unexplained, the, let's call them 14 explanations, things that go beyond conventional science.
Ah, now we're talking. Sea monsters, ghosts, maybe even aliens. Let's hear it.
You got it. First up, the classic. A sea monster. A kraken, maybe, rising from the depths and snatching the keepers from the rocks. Or perhaps, given the Flannan Isles folklore, it was ghosts or spirits, malevolent entities associated with the islands.
Classic maritime fears, but is there any, actual evidence for these kinds of things?
Not really, but the lack of bodies in the eerie setting, it just fuels the imagination. And then, of course, we have a more modern twist.
Yeah.
Alien abduction. Maybe they saw something they shouldn't have and poof, beamed up to a spaceship.
Okay, I gotta admit, that one's a bit of a stretch for 1900.
Yeah, a little anachronistic, but hey, who knows, right? Some people even theorized about spies or a mysterious vessel. Maybe the keepers stumbled across something they weren't supposed to see and were silenced. This one got a little more popular during the Cold War, but again, not much real evidence to support it.
So, lots of speculation, but nothing concrete. What about those mad logbook entries I keep hearing about? The ones that supposedly describe supernatural events and the keepers going insane with fear.
Ah, yes. Those. They're often cited as evidence of something truly terrifying happening.
Yeah.
But here's the thing. Those entries are most likely fake. Later additions or embellishments.
Really? Fake? So where did they come from?
Well, they probably originated from a poem written in 1912, Flannan Isles, by Wilfred Wilson Gibson. Great poem, really captures the atmosphere, but it takes a lot of creative liberties with the story.
Ah, poetic license. So the real logbook entries, what did they actually say?
Well, according to the NLB, they were pretty mundane, routine stuff right up to the last entry. Weather observations, tasks, that sort of thing. No mention of sea monsters or aliens.
So the real logs are actually boring.
Pretty much. Which, in a way, makes the mystery even more intriguing. But we do have those slate notes mentioning storm damage, so there's that.
Okay, back to reality then.
Okay.
We've also got a few less exciting theories floating around. What were those again?
Oh, yeah. Accidental poisoning, maybe from fumes in the lighthouse. Or a chain reaction of accidents. One keeper falls, others try to help, and it all goes wrong. There's even the theory of simultaneous heart attacks, but come on, what are the odds?
Pretty slim, I'd say. So when we boil it all down, strip away the speculation and the myths, what are we left with?
Well, the freak wave theory, the NLB's explanation, it's still the most logical one. We've got the damage on the landing stage, the missing oilskins.
It's the one that fits the known facts best.
Right.
But there are those nagging inconsistencies. Why were they all out there? Why the locked door?
Exactly. And that's what keeps the mystery alive, keeps people speculating, writing stories, making films. Because that simple explanation, while plausible, it just doesn't fully satisfy our need for a complete answer.
It leaves that door open, so to speak. Speaking of which, this whole event, it's really left its mark, hasn't it?
Oh, definitely. It's become this pop culture touchstone, a symbol for isolated disappearances, the power of nature, the mysteries of the sea.
And it's inspired so much creativity. We've got Gibson's poem, of course, but there's also that Genesis song, The Mystery of Flannan Isles Lighthouse, and Peter Maxwell Davies' opera, The Lighthouse.
And don't forget Doctor Who. That episode, Horror of Fang Rock, totally references the Flannan Isles. And then there's that recent movie, The Vanishing, with Gerard Butler.
So from poetry to prog rock to sci-fi, the Flannan Isles have it all.
They really do. And now with the internet, the mystery has been revived for a whole new generation. Articles, documentaries, podcasts like ours.
People are still trying to solve the puzzle. It's a story that just won't die.
And that's part of its appeal, right? But let's not forget the human side of this. Joseph Moore, the keeper, who found the MB Lighthouse. He had to live with that image for the rest of his life.
Haunting. And to think, the actual logbook wasn't filled with terrifying prophecies, but with ordinary, everyday notes. Makes it even stranger.
It does, doesn't it? But that damage on the landing stage, that's real. A testament to the sheer power of the ocean.
And the fact that McArthur left his oilskins behind suggests he saw something, sensed some immediate danger, and acted without thinking.
Yeah, a real oh crap moment. And it's worth noting, despite the Flannan Isles' reputation for being a bit spooky, there weren't any other documented incidents at the lighthouse before this one.
As far as we know, this was a unique, isolated event.
And Muirhead, the NLB superintendent, he was pretty firm in his conclusion. Keepers on duty until dinner, then went out to secure something, got hit by a massive wave. Case closed.
Except, not really, is it?
Nope. The lighthouse is still there, automated now, but it still stands on that island. And the waves keep crashing, holding onto their secrets.
So, the Flannan Isles mystery. A potent mix of isolation, duty, a brutal environment, and a whole lot of unanswered questions.
Was it a tragic accident? A freak wave? Or is there something more to it?
The locked door, the missing pieces, the whispers of other possibilities, it all keeps us guessing.
What do you think, listener? What's the most compelling part of this story for you? What questions are still bouncing around in your head?
We've got a curated curiosity cabinet in our show notes. It's packed with reports, articles, accounts, all sorts of stuff. Dive in and see what you can find. Maybe you'll uncover a new clue.
We'd love to hear your thoughts. Thanks for joining us on this historical road trip. Be sure to share this story with anyone who loves a good mystery, rate the show so others can find us, and follow for more captivating tales from the world of flash culture. Until next time, keep those historical lights burning.